Welcome. This is the Commissioner Corner podcast. It is May 21st, and this is episode 39. As always, we are presented by web3ks.com. Check out web3ks.com for your webpage, social media, and all your other graphics needs for a very affordable price. Once again, that's web3ks.com. The MBL is almost in playoff time, and we have some big things to get to tonight. We're talking about the incredible halfback Bryant Vance from the Tennessee Titans, and we're talking about, is he taking over from Melvin Gordon as MBL's top halfback? We're going to look at the MBL playoff picture and the battle of elite safeties, Malik Hooker versus Landon Collins. It's all coming up tonight on the Commissioner Corner podcast. Bomber, it has been an absolutely crazy past couple of weeks for me. I'm so glad to have that all behind me, and we are just moving forward with Commissioner Corner podcast. How are you doing tonight?
Yeah, Commissioner Corner podcast stops for nobody, but I got a question, Lip. I got to know. I think that might have been your best intro you've done since we've been starting the show. Did you write any of that down? Was everything written down up until you said Gorgon?
Because, occasionally I do write things down, but I still say things like Gorgon, but my eyes and my mouth don't really work
How much of that did you write down?
The whole thing. I write an intro for every show because I want to sound professional and smooth.
That was
Even
good,
though it doesn't work out, I try.
That was good. That was good up until Gorgon.
Melvin Gordon.
From the Gordon
Tonight
family.
On Commissioner Corner.
That sounds like there's some history there. Maybe a new character introduced into Fortnite. Gorgonites or something. I don't know, man. What are we doing here? All right, so we got running like a Titan on the screen right now. So we're talking about, are we on this Bryant Vance topic, the halfback for the Tennessee Titans, the Hawaiian Titans, if you will. How phenomenal has he been this year? What are we talking about, Bryant Vance? What's going on? What's the angle here? Best halfback in the league? Top 3 halfback? Top 5 halfback? What's the argument? What's the debate? Set me up here, Lip. What do we got going on?
Well, the biggest thing about Bryant Vance is that he came into the league last year and took over for Derrick Henry as halfback for the Tennessee Titans. And Derrick Henry, I couldn't remember his name there. I
almost said Gorgon again.
Derrick Gorgon Henry was, such a dominant power back in the past for the Titans, and they just completely went away from him for this guy named Bryant Vance, and he was the Rookie of the Year, the AFC at halfback for the Titans last year. Just came out and had a phenomenal year, and now this year he is just absolutely killing it, up over 1,500 yards already. I think he just had a 130-yard game against the Broncos, just having a phenomenal season. So my question to you, we talked about Melvin Gordon, not Melvin Gorgon. Melvin Gordon kind of fallen off this year. We talked about it a couple episodes ago, I believe, episode 37. And the big question is this now Bryant Vance's league? Is he the premier halfback in the MBL?
Well, as Melvin Gordon ages, we always have to ask that question to ourselves. How many more years does this guy, how many more seasons does Melvin Gordon have in him? I think we actually saw him slowing down a little bit last season, MBL season 30. MBL season 31, no sophomore slump. Sophomore slump. What the heck am I talking about?
We're tongue-tied tonight. Yeah, we're out of practice.
No, pause. No sophomore slump for Bryant Vance. He's balling out. Here's the issue with Bryant Vance. Has always been health. Came from Virginia Tech. 5th-round pick. It was health concerns, injury concerns. You got a 5'11", 211-pound halfback who's got the juice, 95 speed, 91 excel, 91 juke move, 93 carry with 88 agility. He's got the fast development. This kid is raw, and he's good, but it was just health concerns. 6 games last season, he had under 10 carries because he was taken out of the game for game injuries. This season, only 2 times has he been under 10 carries, and we're talking 8 carries and 9 carries, and one of them, he went for 200 yards. So there was no game injury there. Health has been a concern in his past, but not this season, MBL season 31. He has been balling, and yes, if Melvin Gordon was to pass the torch to anybody in the MBL right now, Bryant Vance would be the leading candidate, in my opinion, to take that torch and take it to the next level. I mean, this kid's almost at Bryant Vance 2K. I mean, he would be approaching it if we just had another game left after the week 17. What is he at right now total in the season? 1,700, nearly 1,800 yards? 1,738.
Yes.
Literally just a game. He has one more game left. The last 3 games he's gone for a $131, 212, and a $163. He's fumbled 2 of those games, so that's an interesting stat. Broken 4 tackles. And check this out, Lip. 6 carries of 20-plus yards in those 3 games. Phenomenal. Big home run hitter, halfback. They're happy to have him in Tennessee because, you know, when you have Derrick Henry, you really don't get those big home run kind of plays too often. And with Bryant Vance, it just seems very, very frequent. And he's got that Melvin Gordon kind of feel, but many argue just a little bit faster.
Yeah, and this is the big thing to me. If we look back at Melvin Gordon's 2,000-yard season, he averaged 8.2 yards per carry. Right now, Vance is at 8.4. But the big thing is that the Titans didn't really give Vance the ball quite as much. Melvin Gordon had 255 carries for 2,100 yards. And right now, Vance is at 207 carries for 1,700 yards. If he had more carries, just a couple more carries throughout the season, we could definitely be talking about a 2,000-yard running back here. But he just didn't get those carries. There's one game left. I do not think he's going to have over 300 yards in one game. But still, such a great season from a surprising kind of out of nowhere halfback. Halfbacks aren't really drafted high. They're not really talked about as much as other players. But Bryant Vance took an opportunity, did so much with it, and now whenever you talk about halfbacks in the league, you're talking a lot about him. And Melvin Gordon's kind of gone to the back shelf for now. He's still having a great year, but just not quite the number one halfback in the MBL. So
I got a fun stat for Melvin Gordon. You want to talk about a halfback that might look back at his career as Melvin Gordon's only 29 years old, Lip. Let me put this in perspective about Melvin Gordon as we've been talking about Bryant Vance, and we'll continue to run the Bryant Vance clips. And isolated, are we running at 1080 right now? Are we at 720? All right, failed us again. That's my strike 6 right now, guys. We're obviously not playing baseball because he'd be out right now. But here we go. All right, attempts for the halfback, and we're talking about the man Melvin Gordon. 4 of the last 5 seasons had over 200 carries. 3 of those 5, he's been over 250 carries on a season. This is a 29-year-old halfback, and they say halfbacks don't play past 30 because of this kind of abuse. He's been running the ball into the ground. Even his last 4 games, 17 attempts, 14 attempts, 21 attempts, only averaging 5.6 yards per carry this year. That's a bit down from his 2,000-yard season where he averaged 8.2 on 255 attempts. He followed that up with 6 yards per carry on 262 attempts. Melvin Gordon, his time is pretty much up, and I think if you're looking to get longevity from a halfback, Bryant Vance is the kind of guy that can put up crazy numbers and give you longevity because he doesn't need 250 carries a season because he's hitting these kind of home runs, Lip.
Yeah, you save those 50 carries. Halfbacks don't live that long. You save those 50 carries or so a season, but you still get that 1,700-yard plus production out of them. That's a really big win when you're comparing these guys, but we'll have to see how that plays out. Moving on, we're going to get into a subject here. We're talking about 2 safeties that are playing incredible football, and they're really the leaders of their defense. That is Malik Hooker and Landon Collins. And before we get there, I want to lead into this with a video from a very own fellow Blitz. It's his Dean's List video. Unisolated is going to get that pulled up. If you haven't checked it out, shame on you. But now that you're watching the Commissioner Corner podcast, you're going to be able to see it. So we're going to run that for you right now.
What's up, MBL? If you watched yesterday's game, then you know why I'm here. The New York Giants defense played terribly, mediocrity at best. But to whom much is given, much is expected. And that's why I'm going to put the blame on the leader of the defense, Landon Collins. Oh my God, he was terrible in the passing game, and it was horrendous in the running game. Le'Veon Bell was running past this man. Le'Veon Bell ran for over 100 yards. You're supposed to be a 90-speed elite safety, for crying out loud. For that reason, Landon Collins, welcome to the Dean's List.
So right there was the Dean's List from our very own fellow Blitz talking about the embarrassment that was Landon Collins on MBL Live last night. And he is, like I said, these 2 guys are the defensive leaders of their teams. Landon Collins, safety for the New York Giants, and just was not there last night. Now, you look at this season so far, he's having an absolutely great season. A career high in interceptions with 36 tackles on the year, still a game or 2 left. But as it was pointed out, he just really was not there on the big stage, and that's kind of a concern for me because Collins is supposed to be that defensive leader. Now, we go over to the Colts secondary and look at Malik Hooker, who has always been talked about as such a dominant safety, always hyped up so much by ownership there. But the big thing is he's had 6 interceptions in each of the last 3 seasons, and now he is exploding for 12 interceptions. We know that Collins is an elite safety. Bummer, is this just a quick, lucky season for Hooker, or are they both elite? And if you got to pick one, who are you going with?
Oh, that's a good question right now. I kind of got to think about it, but I know Malik Hooker, it isn't one good season for him. It seems like we're always talking about Malik Hooker and his ability to create game-changing plays. We're talking NBL season 26. He had 12 picks. NBL season 27, he had 10. He followed the next 3 seasons up with 6, 6, 6. A little devilish for me, but Malik Hooker has bounced back from back to double digits. I mean, I think this guy is maybe a top 25 NBL Madden 18 cycle player with Malik Hooker. Landon Collins, just a beast out there. It just seems like he's flying away everywhere. So when you see him on the Dean's list, you think, man, wow, kind of a letdown. But he just seems to have up and down seasons. 11 picks in NBL season 26, followed up by 4, 6, 11, 5, and 13. So you're definitely getting more consistency as far as interceptions go with Malik Hooker. He just seems to be a little bit more of a better coverage safety, but Landon Collins does a lot of other things. He can force fumbles, he can make big tackles, he can shoot the gap, stop the run, play coverage, pretty much rush the passer, anything you want him to do. This is not a very small safety. He's 6'2", 225, and he plays every bit of it out of Alabama. I think Landon Collins is kind of second tier to Malik Hooker. That's just my opinion, even though I think the New York Giants utilize their team and their defense better than probably anybody in the league, and that's why they have been so successful at 10-4.
Yeah, and the thing is, I think you have a great point there. And you look at Hooker, 12 interceptions, 10 interceptions, and then 3 seasons with 6, and now this 12 interception season. Collins, his lows are too low for me. 11 interceptions his first season, and then 4, 6, 11, 5, and 13. They're lower than Hooker, but here's the big thing that I want to point out. Even though he did not show up last night, and it was a struggle for the New York Giants defense, their defense is in a lot better position than the Colts. You look at the Colts defense, 30th in yards, 28th in passing, 29th against the rush. It just doesn't seem to add up that there's such a star power at safety back there, and they're at the absolute bottom. I know that there's not a lot of help there. There's probably a lot more help in New York.
A lot more, Lip. Way more. I'm talking sacks. You're talking defensive line linebackers. Who's one of the best linebackers in the NBL right now? When you think of NBL Live big-time performers, you think Reggie Ragland, linebacker, New York Giants. He's got NBL Live player of the game probably more than anybody in the last 20 times NBL Live games. It's a completely different team. I mean, Malik Hooker is essentially out there by himself, the only one making plays, and he's consistently been doing it since this cycle has started. I mean, his lowest is 6, but he's hit double digits 3 times. He's forced more fumbles. He's had more touchdowns. He's just been a better playmaker. 6'2", 205, Ohio State. He's been flying around. I think Landon Collins is a great player, but Malik Hooker has been a better playmaker since this Madden cycle started.
I do understand that, and I think that there is a little bit more talent in New York, but I just think that the leadership of Collins outweighs Hooker, and that's why I would go with Collins. I've seen him make some fantastic plays to change the games. I think I've seen Malik Hooker make a couple plays, but their team's always kind of out of it, and I'm just not sure how much he has to do with it. But it doesn't really seem like it's a big thing to me. But I can't just let Reggie Ragland.
Well, let me ask you this. Though. Okay, I want to ask you this question. Take Landon Collins, you put him in Indianapolis, and you take Malik Hooker, the big playmaker, the guy making plays against the defense that isn't really forcing teams to have to pass. I mean, a lot of their games are blowouts at the end where a team's pretty much just running the ball. So he's going to get more opportunities in New York with a better defense, and he's the ball hawk that he is at 6'2". He's only 26 years old. Landon Collins is 28. So next year, Landon Collins regresses. Malik Hooker is still going to play out this cycle strong. Who do you think would be better in that switch? Who would have more success? Would Malik Hooker take his stats to the next level with New York? Or would they get the same production or maybe even lose production if they replaced Landon Collins with Malik Hooker?
I mean, that's a great question, but I'm not too big, especially at the safety position, because we've seen safeties play so well over, even later in their career. So I'm not sure that holds a lot of weight to me, because I still think that experience outweighs the amount that they're going to lose in a little bit of aging as far as like speed and stuff. So I'm just not sure about the switch, because I don't think that Malik Hooker could handle going to an organization that's kind of buttoned up. He's used to that loose and free style there in Indy, and just kind of doing whatever he wants for that huge contract that they gave him.
Well, I mean, reading the chats right now, a couple people saying, Timbo saying it would keep the teams the same. I don't think switching any player keeps any team the same. You got to choose. That's a cop-out. You got to choose who's going to be better, who you think would improve. So, Lip, I'm putting you on the spot. If Landon Collins goes to the Colts, does he improve their defense, or do they get worse? And the vice versa with Hooker. Before we close out this subject, where do you think?
All right, my final comments
and
on
no
this
same stuff. We got to make a decision. There's no co-MVPs. There's none of that here. This is the Commissioner Corner podcast. Not. Let's draw a line. If we disagree, we move on. Just you end up being wrong. But if you agree with me, we're both right. Your choice.
My line is that wherever Collins goes, he is the better safety, and that is always going to be my opinion about these two.
All right. And okay, well, I got a follow-up question to that. For the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Okay.
Imagine you get to keep Fourney. You get to pair him up with somebody else. Would you take Collins, Landon Collins, or would you take Malik Hooker?
Okay, this is kind of a trick question.
Because you want the ball hawking safety in your situation, I would assume, right?
Well, here's the thing. For me, Fourney, I think, is 5'10" or 5'11". He's very small. I don't have in our defense. We don't have
size cop out guys.
I would take the size of Malik Hooker. He is 2 inches taller. I would definitely take that.
You know why? I know why Lip would take Malik Hooker, because you're not going to beat Lip ground and pound. He could care less of the value that Landon Collins might have, because Lip's going to put up 35. If you don't put up 35, you're not going to beat him. So if you have Malik Hooker back there, that negates a team from attempting to put up 35. So while Lip is saying Collins is the better overall safety, we just put it into play. If he had to take anybody on the Pittsburgh Steelers and pair him with the Fourney, the best safety in the league, in my opinion.
Yeah, but if you take
Fourney
out and ask me to pair somebody with Sean Davis, I would go with Landon Collins, because Landon Collins is the better safety.
Yeah, but who wants to pair with Sean Davis at
Nobody.
this point? We want to pair with the best. Exactly. We want to pair with the best. So I'm taking Fourney. So he could say, hey, I could have a ball hawking Fourney and a guy who can do it all like Collins. He says, no, I want the ball hawking Fourney, and I want the legion of ball hawking in Pittsburgh, and I'm going to take Malik Hooker because he's 6'2". That was his excuse, but he's really saying he wants the ball hawking in the length, because he knows Fourney shuts down his side of the field. If he had a safety on the other side doing the same thing, I mean, it would be a no-fly zone there when you're looking at the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, guys, we'll leave it up to you, and you can make your decision on that as we move forward. So what do we have next on the topics?
Yeah, good debate there about safeties in the MBL, but now we're moving on. It's almost playoff time in the MBL, so we are going to look at the AFC playoff race, and there's not a whole lot to talk about here, because two teams have really, locked up the wild card race, the Browns and the Ravens. You have the division leading New England Patriots, Pittsburgh Steelers, Tennessee Titans, and Los Angeles Chargers. There's not a whole lot that can be done. The Ravens and the Browns play this week. One of them could lose this week, lose week 17, and maybe a very, very, very outside shot, the Chiefs could get in. But I think the AFC is pretty much set up the way it is. Balmer, who do you think is in line to go on a deep NBL playoff run? And what's one of these teams that you think could make it to the big game from the AFC?
This is tough, because there's only, as you see, the long shot right there is the Kansas City Chiefs. Our NBL network director is in there. Why does Kansas City get a mention? Because he's mathematically still in, and you're mathematically eliminated, because the bottom guy's 11-3, which means he can only lose 5 games. Chiefs are 9-5, so I assume that's where he's going there, even though I don't know what the heads up is on that. He might be eliminated as well. So if you have 6 losses, you're mathematically eliminated. DB, 8-7, mathematically eliminated. Raiders, mathematically eliminated. Jets, well, maybe, depending on that division. I think he's eliminated, though, on the tiebreaker. I think Timbo is going to take that one, as he does play the Dolphins. week 17. But that's a crazy, I think what we're going to see the difference in is who gets the 5-6 seed. I think they play this week. Ravens, Browns, absolutely. I know they play week 17. So that's going to be the issue. Which team gets that 5 or 6 spot? The AFC North has been rocking and rolling. The Patriots, I like them at home against either one of those teams. I think they can make it a good game. But, man, we could see an AFC North finals in the AFC if we, just can get those Chargers out of their lip.
Yeah, and that's a tough thing to do. The Chargers have been, in a couple of Super Bowls in the last couple of years. But I'll tell you right now, I do really like the Ravens just because I think that they have taken so many positive steps in the last couple of years to put themselves in this position. This is their chance. I think that they could knock off a couple of teams here and really surprise some people and go on a run. That's something that I'm excited to see. I don't think the Browns will be there because Joe Watson has just not played. There was even talk of regret from the organization about taking him, who they traded up to get. So there's a lot of storylines there with Watson in Cleveland. But we're going to move on to the NFC, and this one's a little bit more open just because there's a little bit of play in between some of these teams. I am just trying to pull up the correct graphic. So right now, we saw a big game last night of the Giants against your Lions, in which the Giants did not show up. They did a lot of things wrong. They got to go back to the drawing board and come up with something different. So we get the Giants, the Lions, the Saints, and the Seahawks leading their divisions. The Chicago Bears are in very close position with the Lions. I do believe you guys play Week 17.
Yeah, Week 17 is going to be for the division. I kind of figured it would be that way, but actually if I would have closed out against the Bills, he ended up losing to the Carolina Panthers, the fellow Blitz Panthers last night in what many considered an upset. Bears probably didn't consider it so much. They're really rational about their situation, but yeah, the Panthers beat them, so now it comes down to the division, Lions, Bears, which will probably get streamed at like 3 in the morning because that's the win we're probably going to have to play because big shout out to Bob. He's got a new job now, got his own job, so big shout out to him. But we'll be playing late. I'll make sure I stream that game, though, for anybody that wants to late night watch it. But the NFC looks to be, has that door open still. I mean, you still got the Vikings. You still got the Falcons in there fighting for that final spot. The Falcons now 8-6. The Vikings 7-1. The Green Bay Packers are 7-7. They're still alive. A lot of teams still alive right now. And I have to look, man. I think the Falcons end up getting that final wild card spot in the NFC. So I think the Falcons take the final wild card spot. I don't think the Chiefs get in. I think they're actually mathematically eliminated based on tiebreakers. But I could be wrong. Ravens, Browns over there. I think it probably goes Browns, Ravens. I think the Browns come away with the victory tonight. Puts them Ravens at the 6th seed, which will have them against the Titans. I think they pull the upset versus the Titans. And then the 4-5 being the Patriots versus the Browns, which I think would be a very interesting matchup if you're looking for an upset in the first round. We could see the Patriots probably finish 9-7, a 9-7 team upset a potentially 13-3 Cleveland Browns team.
Yeah, so real quick, guys, get your topics, your questions into the chat for the Crossfire section. After we're done talking about the NFC playoff picture, we're going to pull some of those questions and we're going to talk about them. The Commission Corner Crossfire section at the end of the show. So get those in the chat. Nice Lady's going to pull them out for us. But you talk about the Falcons, and I saw a couple of interesting stats that make me believe they are not even close to a championship contender right now. And that is because wide receiver Kelsey Ford for the Falcons has 71 receptions, just under 1,000 yards, and only 4 receiving touchdowns. Now, Deion Burks has 67 receptions, 1,200 yards, 11 touchdowns. The big red flag to me is that they do not find a way to throw touchdowns to anyone other than Burks, and that's a major red flag for me. Now, I don't know how ball's played in the NFC, but that is something that I would look for and totally take away Burks. And we know that they have some great wide receivers, but Bomber, why are they not spread hit? Why are they not able to get the ball to these other guys into the end zone?
Well, you look at size and you look at athleticism, but you look at Bradford, Burks, or Ford. They're all pretty much around the same size: 5'9", 5'10", 5'11". and they just are small, speedy guys. So why is Burst just primarily getting all these touchdown targets? He's just making things happen with his legs on the ground after the play. He just seems to be the overall #1 target. He's a 95 overall, obviously separated from Ford and Bradford, who I believe Ford and Bradford, Kelsey Ford was originally just a kick returner. He came into the league 38 receptions as a rookie, 26 as a sophomore. Last season had 49. This year, 71. So he's not really pedigree kind of a wide receiver that you say, hey, man, this guy's a #1 target. No, this guy's kind of a #2 and a distant #2. And I think Deion Burst is the guy. Even though I like Ronnie Bradford over there, Bradford just hasn't really been too healthy. Bradford is his 3rd year in the league. Superstar development just hasn't really lived up to the hype, has yet to put up 1,000 yards receiving, primarily because he has a hard time staying healthy, and pretty much it's just the health issues. Deion Burst has been healthy. He's their #1 guy, and he's getting most of the targets, 67 catches, over 1,200 yards and 11 touchdowns. They've only thrown 20. So Deion Burst just is the guy that's just there, and that's who Brody Denton is comfortable throwing the ball to, and he's making the plays. And not to mention, they're getting nothing out of the running game this year. Probably the worst they've had it. This is a team that I think their biggest regret would probably be letting Tevin Coleman go, seeing his success in New Orleans.
Yeah.
But at 3.8 yards per carry, 3.2 yards per carry between Blackburn and Freeman just has been absolutely nothing. They're 18th ranked rushing. The Falcons 8-6. That's where most of their problems arrive from.
Yeah, so I mean that's a big red flag, and I mean you gave some good explanations there about injuries and everything else that has kind of led into the problems of that around 500 Falcons team. And the run game is such a big issue. But moving on to the crossfire section, we are going to look at our favorite players for Rookie of the Year, and I've got a guy here that I really like and wish that he would have been able to fall a little bit more in the draft. That's Lawrence McGowan out of Jacksonville, 6'2" rookie out of Nebraska. Really like this guy, and he has come out and done some phenomenal things. 62 receptions, 1,200 yards, and 10 touchdowns in his first season in the MBL, and that's such a great thing to have. I do believe they let Allen Robinson go this past offseason or the one before. But they needed a guy to come in and replace A-Rob, and that's exactly what Lawrence McGowan's done. And I'm very excited to see him. So that would be my selection for Rookie of the Year because of how valuable he's been to that team.
Yeah, McGowan has been good for this team, but letting A-Rob go, I really didn't understand it. A lot of drops from McGowan. I mean, you look it up, 1, 3, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 drops this season for Lawrence McGowan. That's not good. He's 6'2", a $198. He's got that Whistler Ridgeway kind of frame, if you will. Reminds me of him. 90 speed, 95 excel, a little bit higher acceleration than him. 91 agility. This is the guy they like from the University of Nebraska. He can get it done. Top 10 pick in the MBL Season 31 rookie draft. Definitely a prospect for Rookie of the Year. I think the Bears have a nice defensive player on their team that is playing fairly well. I think he's leading the NFC for defensive player of the year. I'd actually have to look him up, so I don't know him. So why I would bring up a guy I really didn't know his name, I don't know, man. Stupidity at its best. Give me a chance to look this up. Who is this guy that they got? They got a rookie over there. It's anybody want to help me out in the chat here? There's a rookie for the Bears. I want to make sure I give him a shout out because I don't think he's gotten any love this year. Is anybody in the chat helping me out here? I know Bob's probably not here, so. Yeah, that's pretty much where we're at.
Chandler Boggs.
Is his name Chandler? Wow,
5'10", wide receiver from Auburn. Chandler Boggs.
No. I'm talking about a defensive player.
Oh, there's another one.
Yeah,
so he's got rookies everywhere that are playing great.
Yeah, but I don't know. That guy hasn't done.
I mean, it's not bad. It's not, dude. 600 yards for a rookie is not that bad. I mean, guys obviously do really, a lot better than that, but those are the stars.
I don't know who he is. Guys,
Chandler Boggs in the second round is not a bad
If you're on the Xbox right now and you're able to look at the NFC, Gub said K Jutler, Jay Cutler backwards. So that's pretty funny. Yeah, I can't find it right now. Chicago Bears. So let's move on. We'll just go with Lib's pick, McGowan from the Jacksonville Jaguars. Good wide receiver, good Rookie of the Year candidate right there, and maybe he'll get it, maybe he won't. Well, I got one. If we're going to talk wide receiver, Lip being modest, Pittsburgh Steelers have Dre Kirkpatrick. Christian, Dre Christian, superstar development. Once I saw you got a superstar development, I knew, well, that's in the bag right there. 5'9", buck 76 from Oregon, light in the tail, but he hasn't had any health issues, right?
No, surprisingly.
So this is where I say surprisingly he hasn't got any health issues. We're just waiting for that time where he goes down. I'm doing the reverse.
This is payback for Harvey Beckham.
Exactly.
I know what you're doing.
But it's not on a live game, so I don't know if the Madden gods are listening right now. But Dre Christian hasn't been hurt yet. And I'll repeat again for the Madden guys listening, he's 5'9", buck 76, kind of small. Maybe he gets hurt more than he should be healthy. He's got a 54 strength. Injury 88, toughness 80. Maybe he doesn't last much longer. We'll find out. Dre Christian has been phenomenal, actually outplaying. So that's where I'd go rookie of the year if I'm looking on the offensive side of the ball. Definitely. Dontavia Farrell is the Chicago Bears player that I was looking to talk about earlier for Chicago. That's got the rookie of the year potential. This kid, man, has been, and obviously, I mean, how much could I know about him? How much could I actually say about him when I didn't even know his name? I just knew of him, that there was a guy. He's playing cornerback, 84 overall for the Chicago Bears, and he's been pretty good for this team because I see him in there in the awards thing. How many interceptions does he have? 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 interceptions as a rookie. Got a couple sacks.
Pretty good.
A fumble recovery, a couple deflections, a couple touchdowns. Kid's pretty much been pretty solid. Top 10 pick from Ole Miss. Shout out to you, Dontavia Farrell. And what do we have next on MBL Crossfire?
So we've got two more. The very first one that we're going to go over here is Daniel Powell, Jets quarterback, the most underrated player in the league. And I think that you and I can comment on quarterback play and have some confidence with that. But yeah, absolutely, nobody's talking about this guy. I do believe he's in his second year, 3,600 yards, 31 touchdowns, and only 13 interceptions, a QBR of 115. The Jets kind of got off to a little bit of a rough start this season, and their defense has not helped them out. They're actually last in the league in total defense, so they have no help there. But Powell has had an absolutely phenomenal season for nobody even thinking that he would have a chance. So yeah, I absolutely do think he's the most underrated because nobody's really talked about him, and he's having such a great season.
Quick development. He was a third-round pick in the NBL Season 30 rookie draft. It's just consistency. He's just got to get a little bit more consistent. These are his QBRs. I want to read some of them out just to get you an idea. We'll start in Week 10. 141. Well, we'll start in Week 8. So he had a 108, then 141, then 76, then 136, then 83, 153, 158, 86. So you see a lot of up and down play. When he struggles, he really does struggle. But when he's good, he's really, really good. I think once he just kind of finds a baseline for those bottom games, we're going to be talking about a top 5 quarterback in the NBL. That's where he's got to be projected right now. He has a strong arm, a live arm, 93 throw power, 86 short, 86 medium, 80 deep. That's very similar to about the middle of the road. If he just can get a little bit more consistency, he's going to have the tools and the ability to be probably a top 5 quarterback, at least on the verge of entering that top 5 area. Shout out to Z-Star.
Yeah, he's having a great season. We'll get to see that as the future goes, and that'll be exciting to watch. But the last thing, this is the last one that we're doing here. We're going to talk a little bit just about Madden in general. The question is, which is more important? An elite pass rush or an elite secondary? And I'm going to go with an elite pass rush because I've been in a position before where I've had an elite secondary and I didn't have a pass rush and they really let me down. You can have an elite pass rush, and if they're not on, they're not on. But the most important thing is to get pressure to the quarterback. So really investing in your pass rush, it really does make up for some difference in the secondary. If you've got a couple bad corners, they can play a lot better whenever the quarterback is hurried, not thinking clearly, not making the right reads. So that's where I would go with an elite pass rush.
Fellas saying elite secondary is overrated. Here's the deal. Okay, let me answer this question in a couple parts. Lip's absolutely right. And in real life, I think they would share the same sentiments that a pass rush is going to help the secondary so much that if you got a guy that can cover for 2 to 3 seconds, which most people can, It's when they get into the 4 or 5 seconds mark that everything goes downhill, or even a guy that can cover for 1 to 2 seconds, and then you're getting pressure. It doesn't necessarily have to be a sack. It has to be pressure that takes them away from being comfortable. And I think if you can do that with a pass rush, it really sets up you success in the backfield, excuse me, because you got Darius Slay, right, for example, or a star cornerback, Joe Hayden in his prime. You're really going to struggle if you don't get pressure. Even as great as they are, they're going to get beat after a while. You got a crossing route. Eventually, that route's going to get open. You're in zone coverage. Eventually, somebody's going to get open. If you're in man coverage and you're asking somebody to cover for a long period of time, eventually someone's going to playmaker you. It's going to get open. So I'd want the pass rush. If you have an elite secondary, like Fella says, elite secondary is overrated. If you do have an elite secondary and you're struggling getting pressure, you have to start coming with blitzes and saying, you know what? Let me leave this elite secondary just a little bit thin. I'm going to ask them to cover for a shorter amount of time, and I think they have the skill set to make up the difference of not having the personnel in the backfield, right? In the secondary. So there's all these little things you can do. So if you're not getting pressure, start sending more guys, especially if you have the depth in the secondary. Because when you had that elite secondary and you weren't getting the pressure, what did you start doing? Sending more and more heat, right? Because the more heat that you send, even though you have 3 or 4 or 5 guys into coverage, you're okay because those 5 guys are really, really good. As opposed, you're always scared if you don't have a good secondary to really send any real heat, and pass rush becomes even more prevalent then because you can't afford to really send the heat, so you're relying on guys just to kind of beat those one-on-one matchups on the defensive line, offensive line.
Yeah, I do believe Madden's 16, maybe 17, I don't remember which one, but I invested through the draft heavily in my secondary. I selected 3 corners over 2 drafts, put everything I had into them, didn't pay a whole lot of attention to my pass rush, and quarterbacks had 8 to 12 seconds just sitting there all day long, and eventually my corners just couldn't handle it. And now this year I've kind of gone the complete opposite approach. I really invested in my front 7 athletic linebackers, good pass rushing up front, and it's kind of made up for where I'm missing in the secondary. So that's just our opinion about that. Everybody's got their own scheme, own ways that they play. And, that's just, I mean, those questions are really cool because you get to see what guys think about how they build a team. But
we got one more question. Coots is asking who is the favorite for the
I was going to bring that up, but okay. I think you and I heavily will agree on one team.
Yeah, well, who is that?
I think we both are very excited to see how Play as Buccaneers do.
Dude, I'm actually excited to see how those Buffalo Bills will do as well. I mean, he's got a 91 overall team over there. I didn't even realize it till we played. I said, man, those guys, he's got some talented players in Buffalo. That's going to be a team to watch, definitely in the 5-year sim. We'll probably do our top 10 list for 5-year sim before we actually do it here on Commissioner Corner and give you an idea of who we think and then kind of see how we do afterwards. The top 10 teams we think will have the most success. Maybe Lip will pick 5 and I'll pick 5, and then whoever does better, the loser has a penalty or something like that. Lip, we can make a game out of it. Kind of like they're doing with the... In highly debatable, we can do it for the 5-year sim. We pick 5 teams, you pick 5 teams, and then we can go Super Bowl and conference championships. Whoever ends up with the most is the winner, and then, whoever loses has to do a penalty.
Yeah, that sounds cool because we can kind of set that up before we do it, and then we can watch it as it goes. And there's a lot of teams that are going to have some success. It's going to be surprising and fun to watch. But that's going to wrap it up. Next time we're back, it's going to be our 40th episode here. And it's been a fun ride. We're developing the show each and every week. Big shout out to my co-host, Bomber. Unisolated, pulling the strings. JY for graphics. Thank you guys. Even Fellow Blitz submitting his video for Dean's List. We pulled that from Twitter from him. So thank you for that. Again, it's always interesting to see who you pick from those games. I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight, and we will see you next time.